Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence independent media production. Today we are going where few snare wires have gone before, and we're crossing our fingers that it's going to work. Today we are reaching back into the realm of myth busting, maybe DIY modification, depending on whether or not it does something useful. This is the phenomena, the activity of cutting snare wires off of a pre-existing set of wires to change, essentially, the count of wires that you have, and hopefully do something positive to the sound of your snare drum. There's two sides, or rather, reasons why you might do this. One is you have a damaged snare wire, maybe a broken one, something like that. You've got to get rid of it. And then to balance out the tension of the set, you need to remove one from the opposite side so that you're not having them pull unevenly and start to make insane sounds in your snare drum. The other side of it would be if you actually want the sound of less wires and either you can't find the set you want that has less than the set that you have, or if it's maybe an opportunity in a studio or something where you're going to suddenly experiment and just kind of see what comes out. What we're going to do today is a longer comparison than we normally do, which is we have a 20 strand set and we're going to cut 2 from the outside off and record every iteration of this essentially until we run out of wires. This video in particular, this concept for a video, was actually direct from a member of our Patreon. So if you love what you see here and you want to get involved, the Patreon is the best way to support us, get in contact with us, tell us whatever ideas you might have, no matter how crazy, and make sure to ensure that we can continue to make these videos. So without further ado, we are going to, again, change things up a little bit today. We are doing all the demos back to back starting now, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, now the first surprise that we encountered that was actually kind of opposed to what we were expecting is that we didn't change the snare tension for the duration of this. As you're removing wires, you're removing mass, and you should be changing the tension of the wires on the bottom of the head as wires are removed. Surprising to us, we checked at every one of these, and not until the very end did we realize, oh, well, this one could actually benefit from some adjustment. When we finally got to 2 strands, there basically wasn't enough material down there to give us good dynamics, or rather good dynamic response at a low volume and then also at a high volume. You kind of had to tension the wires and pick if you were planning to hit it hard or if you wanted to have a good sound in the softer region. Thing number 2 that we noticed is that there were certain points along the way where suddenly things changed a lot. Now, again, we weren't adjusting the tension at all, and by virtue of the way the custom pros are mounted, we were able to keep the same tension on the mechanism and the straps and everything for the duration of the demonstration. As you go along and listen to all of these, you may notice ones that you prefer. I certainly noticed some that I preferred audibly. We noticed that also they were behaving very differently at a distance than they were up close. The different microphones were getting different parts of the sound. And all things considered, there were a lot of usable options along the way. Now, the flip side of this is that this can very easily damage the wires along the way in ways that could both make them unusable and could also result in damage to your snare side head, because we are, after all, cutting metal wires that are going to end up sharp and that are very, very close to that very, very fragile and very thin snare side head. If you want to experiment with this process, the steps that we took were to cut the wires individually that we wanted to remove at the center of the strands so that we could bend either end away and up and have an easier time nipping them off over at the base plate. Now, when you're doing this, depending on whether you're bending them upward or downward or sideways, you're going to end up with a little burr on there that is going to be sharp no matter what you do. So you got to make sure and check that there's nothing sharp pointing toward the head, and just for the sake of your fingers, hopefully nothing sharp pointing away just for when you're picking the drum up, reaching under there, or trying to adjust the wires in any way. The best thing to do if you do want to experiment with this and avoid getting injured or injuring your snare side head is to get some kind of small file so that you can find the sharp spots, smooth them out, whether they're the tips of the wires or in the solder underneath, so that there's nothing down there that can injure you, the head, or anything else. Another thing we lose when we remove snare wires from our set is the overall surface area and mass that's getting pressed against the bottom of the drum. If you've ever moved, say, from a 20-strand set up to a 30 or a 42, there's a muffling quality, there's a control quality, and there's an overall kind of warmth and compression that happens when you have that much mass against that head and interacting with all of those wires. In this case, we're going in the opposite direction, taking away mass and making more room for the drum to breathe as we are removing the metal that's giving us the snarey part of the snare sound. This makes me think again of snare wire sounds in concert snares too, where we want very dry, very direct sounds, and along with mixing different materials for those drums, oftentimes you'll see snappy snares, which is to say the curly wire like we have here, but a very, very narrow set, 6 or 4 strands, because they don't want to wash that out with too much warm, fat snare sound. We still need it to be cutting and direct and clear. It's quite clear to us that doing this to the snare wires is changing the sound, it's giving us different sounds, and the whole arc of options here, largely they have something good in each one of them. That said, if you are going to do this, again, be very, very careful about A, doing one wire from each side and move your way inward. Don't snip multiple wires from one side of the set because it'll throw the set off balance and the wires will be essentially useless. Make absolutely sure that there are no sharp points coming toward the snare side head for the safety of that head, and none coming outward for the safety of your hands. It would be a real shame to go ahead and cut up a good set of snare wires, decide you don't like them, and also end up ruining a snare side head and having to replace that too. That will do it for today. This was really exciting. I was so confused by some of the sounds we got, so surprised, and those are the best experiments that we do here, the ones that we ourselves are confounded by in the process. If you enjoyed what we did today, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell so you hear about our new videos below. And if you have not, jump over to the Patreon. The link is beneath. Check out the levels, check out all the options over there, and see if there's one that's right for you, because this is, again, the best way to get a hold of us, the best way to share things, and the best way to find all of our extra content that lives over there exclusively for the patrons.